Hello.
Hello, and welcome to
I Will Say This, Though.
And I know it's been a few weeks, but hey, Danny.
Probably even longer by the time this goes up.
Yeah.
Let's do some CanCon.
Yeah, CanCon. And Dan, I just want to say, you might not know this about me, but I am Nostradamus. And even though there's like no evidence of it.
It's an odd middle name.
It was Nostradamus' actual middle name. But yeah, so like a year ago, Danny and I and also Gabby were recording a video where we ranked Marvel Cinematic Universe not post-credit scenes, the credit sequences. And, we could put a link up here.
Yeah, it's a good video.
Yeah, it's a good video. I like it. And at some point during recording, I forget how it came up, but we were talking about Canadian politics because, we're Canadian. And we were talking about how, the Liberals were going to lose because all the polls are showing the Liberals are going to lose. And I said, well, if they replace Justin Trudeau with like Mark Carney or something, I think they'd have a good chance.
You called it. Unfortunately, that moment was edited out of the video, so we can't provide it as proof.
Yes, because you know why? Because I doubted myself. I asked for it to be removed for two reasons. One, because it had nothing to do with Marvel, with Marvel movies, and it just was this super off tangent, and also because it I didn't want it to age badly. I didn't want people to come back and dunk on me. But I should have believed in my Nostradamus skills.
And, I'm sure there are moments in the past videos when I would say Americans are stupid, not that we're any better because we're about to elect Poilievre. Guess what? We're so much better!
Yes!
We looked at this gigantic cliff face that we had all been deciding to jump off of, and we'd been saying, oh, it won't be so bad. It's time to jump off this cliff. And then we just realized, hey, what if we didn't jump off a cliff?
Exactly.
It was beautiful.
I mean, he's gonna, run again in a couple years, so we'll see what happens then.
Well, this may age badly. I don't know how long he's gonna be. I don't know how long Poilievre is gonna be party leader.
Yeah.
Because if I were a conservative candidate, I would be very, very mad at him. I would be very disappointed because this was supposed to be a slam dunk year for the Conservatives, and it was not. Mm-hmm. And he didn't even win his own seat.
Yeah.
So.
Like, do you think it would help or hurt the Liberals if the next election is before Trump is out of office or after Trump? Like, I'm trying to think.
I think it would
be ideal.
I think they clearly benefited very much from him being in office in the States. I think if the next election is while he is still in power, that would probably be good for the Liberals, although a lot could change between now and then.
Yeah. And, okay, so the only evidence we have of my prediction was the Facebook message I sent to Danny asking him to take out that part from the video. So I'll send the screenshot to Danny. We'll put it up here.
I can do that.
This is the only evidence we have of my amazing prediction from a year ago. Anyways,
what are we ranking today, speaking of Canadian politics?
So I wanted to make this video because I wanted an excuse to talk about Canadian politics and talk about my prediction.
This is going to be so accessible and interesting to our international viewers.
Yes, this is going to be so accessible to our viewers. But we're talking about Canadian federal debates. That's right. Jimmy, watched every single English language, I should say. I didn't watch the French ones for obvious reasons. Every single Canadian debate since they started in 1968. And we were going to rank them based on entertainment value.
Now, if just a quick explanation for those of you who are not Canadian, we have two rounds of debates, one in English and one in French. Some candidates obviously do better in one language than in the other.
Yes. I do not do well in French, so
we skip
those.
If someone else out there, someone from Quebec, wants to make a similar video ranking the French debates, cool, go for it.
Yeah.
Because this is clearly such a popular format.
Yeah. So these are very entertaining, obviously. Not boring at all. I did not at all feel tortured forcing myself to watch all these, 2 hour to 3 hour long debates. And so let's get started.
The National Debate, live and in color from Confederation Hall in the West Block of the Parliament Buildings in Ottawa. This is a joint production of the...
So, the first debate happened in 1968, and it was between the Liberal Party, the Progressive Conservative Party, and the NDP, and the give me a second. Well, how do you pronounce it?
Oh, wow. He's so young.
The Realmont. Okay, so the 1968 debate was between Pierre Trudeau from the Liberal Party, Robert Stanfield from the Progressive Conservative Party, Tommy Douglas from the New Democratic Party, and Riel Cauet from the Rallement Creditiste Party, or the Social Credit Party.
They're gone.
They're gone. And I have to admit, I have no idea what social credit is. Do you understand what the social credit party stood for, Danny?
I know what social credit means in a colloquial sense, but I do not know what it would be a party based around.
Yeah. And so I know we said that we're just going to do the English language one. The first debate was actually bilingual because Riel Cauet, he only speaks French. So watching it was wild because not only do I not understand his platform, I also did not really understand what he was saying.
So it's a real boy, you said it, Chewie.
Oh yeah, exactly. It was like a real Chewbacca situation.
Also, can we just quickly address that among the candidates, obviously Justin Trudeau's dad, and also Kiefer Sutherland's grandfather.
Yeah. And also,
isn't that funny?
And also Robert Stanfield's children's dad.
Yeah, I'll admit I don't really know much about him. I don't think he went on to. Obviously, he didn't get to be prime minister. Tommy Douglas didn't either, but at least he's very well remembered because he's the reason we've got Medcare.
That's true. Tommy Douglas. I was kind of like hesitant about watching every single debate from the beginning until I realized Tommy Douglas was in the first one. I'm like, oh yeah, Tommy Douglas, he's an important person. We should have an excuse to talk about him.
So let's talk about the entertainment value of this
debate.
The
entertainment value, now look.
It's got star power, clearly.
It's got star power.
And also Robert Stanfield and the Rallement guy.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. If I were to be objective, it would be in D. But watching this from 2025, it's so different from modern debates that just for historical and curiosity reasons, it kind of has to go to C.
Okay.
And you could rail against me in the comments if you want, because really they didn't.
There are some hardcore haters of the 1968 debate out there. Like it's a divisive entry in the series.
Yeah.
It's a real The Last Jedi situation.
Yeah. It's very. I'd say I compare it more to the first Star Trek movie where it's just like super weird and boring.
Oh yeah, because they're trying to make 2001.
Yeah, and they weren't really sure what they were doing yet.
Yeah.
Because this one, it's like, first of all, they're not really debating with each other. They're kind of just all taking turns speaking to the camera.
That's still sort of true.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of, okay, I will say this, though. It's very interesting when you realize that Pierre Trudeau is only one generation apart from Justin Trudeau, because the media landscape changed so much between his time and Justin Trudeau's time that the way they present themselves on camera are so different. It's like they're from two different planets. Like Pierre Trudeau, because he was on television and his whole thing is he wants to get his ideas out clearly. He's talking really slowly, really deliberately. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Not very... he's not really smiling. He sounds kind of like, honestly, bored and snobby, to be honest.
I think people took their politics very, very seriously back then. Mm-hmm. And at least the idea was, and maybe this wasn't true, but people thought it was true, that substance mattered more than presentation.
Yeah.
When obviously now we know that...
Because now it's all about the soundbite.
It's all about the soundbite. It's all about the clip. It's all about red meat for your base. It's all about just energizing people. Then you're, at least in theory, trying to make a measured case for why you would be the best person for the job.
Exactly. And they're all being super respectful. They're not talking over each other. They're all just like talking directly to the camera, being very friendly, and they all look super ugly. Like every single person, none of them are handsome like Justin Trudeau.
People thought of Pierre as extremely handsome
at
the time.
That is incorrect.
I think
he is hideous.
Must be just the changing standards thing, because I never understood. He's charismatic.
Not in this debate. Maybe in other
at times.
At times,
all
but
right.
every time I see him in a debate, he's super bored. It's like he's about to fall asleep.
There was the famous case when he was really sick of just being in the stand in Parliament, and he dropped an F.
But yeah, so he definitely, I don't know what, but he, Rob Stanfield, who's a progressive conservative, also super uncharismatic. He seems super awkward. He's like stuttering. He's bad at making his case because he keeps like saying the wrong thing. At one point, they're talking about gun control, and Stanfield makes this really awkward joke about killing Pierre Trudeau. Yeah, like look how fucking bored Pierre Trudeau looks.
Blue steel.
I think it's possible to prevent all assassinations of this sort. For example, I was sitting behind the Prime Minister this afternoon in church and could quite easily have done him in, and nobody could possibly have stopped me if I'd suddenly gone off my rocker. I'm interested in doing him in some other way, but not that way.
Okay. So nowadays, that would not be taken as a fun, chuckle-worthy joke.
Yeah. Like,
although, honestly, it's 1968. Kennedy was shot earlier that decade.
RFK was just out earlier this year, and they talk about it.
The good RFK, not the one we have now.
Yeah. So, I, honestly, it was kind. Now that you mentioned it, now that you bring it up, it's kind of wild because they even bring up RFK later, some point in this debate. But yeah, anyway, but you see how he just makes this awkward joke and he's like talking super slowly.
Yeah.
And I can see why Rob Stanfield didn't win. I'm still kind of surprised Trudeau did win because he sounds super bored. Tommy Douglas sounds like Droopy Dog, like the cartoon Droopy Dog. I didn't realize.
I know of him. Can you provide me with a clip?
What we're really saying is that you must distinguish between sin and crime. And if ever we needed in this country to adopt a new attitude to homosexuality, this is the time. Instead of treating it as a crime and driving it underground, we ought to recognize it for what it is. It's a mental illness. It's a psychiatric condition, which ought to be treated sympathetically, which ought to be treated by psychiatrists and social workers. And we're not going to do this by throwing people into jail.
Okay, yeah.
It is wild to think that what he was saying at the time was the hard left position. Yeah. That this was like, for the time, the cool guy take.
Yeah.
And not the cranky old bigot take.
I love watching that because I was like, he's like, oh yes, you go, Tommy Douglas. And so he just drops we should put them in asylums and treat them as psychiatrists. I'm like, oh, Tommy.
This was...
Tommy D.
Even the progressive attitudes of the time feel really antiquated today.
To be clear, to be fair, Tommy Douglas was like Mr. Healthcare. So his solution to everything was, let's throw healthcare at it until it... Anyways, okay, I'm also gonna...
He is less charismatic than his son-in-law. I'll tell you that.
I am gonna pick, before we move on, I'll mention a few more things. But I will pick a winner for each debate, and winner just means like who I thought was the most entertaining, not necessarily that I agree with things. I think Tommy Douglas was the best debater here. He seemed the most awake, more awake than Pierre Trudeau and Rob Steinfield. The social credit guy.
How can we rank?
The social credit guy was also super lively, but he was speaking French, so I don't really care.
We'll call that an NA.
Yeah.
We're not really qualified to rank him.
Yeah. Quebec's gonna come out against us.
Hey, man, Quebec, if you want to make your own list, go for it.
Yeah.
We are not qualified to do that. We admit that.
They worship fucking
I don't think they do.
Anyways, let me just see. I just want to see before I move on. Tommy Douglas comes off really hard against Taiwan. Which, because at the time it was like, they were trying to decide if they should recognize People's Republic of China or Taiwan as like real China.
The real China.
Yeah. And then he just comes out so hard against Taiwan.
It's a sheer farce to suggest that Taiwan represents China.
And I thought that was really funny. Anyways, yeah, I guess that's it. But yeah, so overall pretty boring. It's mostly just people talking directly into the camera. It's talking really slowly with a lot of dead air just throughout this whole debate.
We wouldn't know anything about that, would we? Making boring videos about things most of our viewers won't care about.
No, they're going to care about Canadian politics by the end of this video.
This is how you know that we are not chasing trends. We are not trying to... we are not trying to maximize the algorithm.
No.
We are not in any way interested in selling out on this channel. Couldn't do it if we tried. Let's talk about 1979.
1979. And,
Live from Ottawa, Encounter 79. An exchange of views by the leaders of Canada's three major political parties on the issue.
Okay, so the 1979 one, very boring.
Okay.
Very incredibly fucking
Who
boring.
are the candidates?
Who are the candidates? Once again, Pierre Elliott Trudeau from the...
Yeah, he had a good run.
Yeah, also he aged like 10 years in between this and the previous debate. Because 1968, they didn't do any debates for like 11 years. And then Pierre Trudeau... Yeah, there's
Oh,
Pierre.
wow.
Yeah, he aged a lot.
He melted.
He melted like a candle. So Pierre Trudeau was once again for the Liberal Party. He was still the sitting prime minister. The Progressive Conservatives was Joe Clark.
Oh, yeah, I remember
At
him.
that time, very young. I think might even be less than 40, maybe 39, I forget. And for the New Democratic Party is Ed Broadbent.
I know that name.
Yeah. So this one's three of them. There is no Social Credit Party anymore, thank God. Still, if you know what Social
When
Credit
did the block form?
is... 93.
Okay.
Yeah. So I didn't take a lot of notes because a lot of this was like super boring. All three of them, once again, very uncharismatic. Well, Ed Broadbent was kind of charismatic. Once again, the NDP did have... I do think Ed Broadbent of the NDP was the winner because he felt the most awake. He felt the most present.
I always thought of Joe Clark as a kind of likably boring man.
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't that hard right in terms of conservatism, right?
Yeah, he wasn't. He was, well, he was part of the Progressive Conservative
Yeah,
Party.
although that, doesn't really mean anything anymore.
Because the party died, but like,
Yeah.
the Conservative Party of Canada,
Well,
as it is
federally,
now. Yeah.
We've got a provincial progressive conservative government right now.
But even
and
that
they
one
suck.
Yeah, but they're not as far right as the federal Conservative Party without
That's
the Progressive.
probably true.
So it's moderated by David Johnston, who has later become a governor general, who's kind of cool.
Yeah, I know him.
What else? Clark's super deep voice.
Let's hear a clip of Joe Clark talking.
Joe Clark talking.
That's the goal that my colleagues and I set for Canada. That's the goal we've been setting forward in this national election campaign. That's the goal which, with your help, we would want to begin to accomplish on the 22nd of May, working in partnership with you then and in the days of government afterwards. Thank you.
I remember the joke about him was always that he went, oh.
Yeah,
And then Mr. Chrétien?
We want to know.
well, I'll show you a clip of it later. But it's weird because like he's also super young. I think he's like the youngest prime minister or one of the youngest.
Yeah, he did get to the PM for a bit.
But he had a super low... Yeah, so what happened after this debate is that Joe Clark won the election, but then like 9 months later, he was kicked out and replaced again with Pierre Trudeau because of a vote of no confidence. But it's interesting how a lot of the things that we currently talk about in Canadian politics were happening back then. Like he was accusing the NDP of propping up the Liberal governments, and then the NDP
What kind of
was
accusation is that? Like, yes, it's called a minority government.
It's called a minority, and
they
then-
happen in a parliamentary system.
And then the NDP at Broadbent was like, "Oh, we did that to get progressive policy concessions." Literally,
Well,
just
yeah.
just like Jagmeet Singh and Justin Trudeau.
Why would you accuse someone? They're talking about this like it's some kind of dirty political trick when, like, no, that's how this works.
I mean, it's because no one ever props up the Conservatives, because like most
Yes,
of the
that's true.
parties in Canada are left of center, so they like if the Conservatives had a minority, no one helps them out.
There was a while when there were multiple federal conservative parties.
Yeah.
And I don't know the exact timeline of what
We'll
happened
get to
when,
it,
but
but yeah.
I'm sure they would or did prop each other up here and
Well,
there.
they never formed government though. Like when there were multiple.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, so they never had a chance.
Yeah, this
to
was like
prop
during the
anyone up.
Chrétien years.
Yeah. But anyways,
They would have if it came up.
yeah. I don't know if we we'll in editing we'll record a clip of us just like explaining Canadian politics, how the politics system works.
Do you want to just do that now?
Sure, okay. So,
Unlike in the United States, we do not vote directly for a prime minister. We vote for our member of parliament, which goes riding by riding. So essentially, it's like voting for
a house rep basically.
Yeah, it's like voting for Congress, I guess, and who's going to be head of government at the same time.
Right.
We vote for our members of parliament, and then they vote on who's going to be the prime minister.
Well,
so
usually the prime minister's already determined before the election.
Well, what that means basically is that the party leader
yeah.
of the party that got the most seats is going to win. But in theory, if on election night enough MPs who kept their seats or won their seats, in theory, if they all decided we're not going to vote for our party leader, we're going to do this other thing, they could. They
Yeah.
wouldn't, but they could.
And to be clear, when we say most, we don't mean more than 50%. If you have Like right now, for example, if the prime minister has like 40% of the seats in the House of Parliament, but the remaining 60% are divided among the other parties.
Yeah,
so no one has more than 40%.
We've got more than two parties here.
So that's called a minority system, where their leader gets to be prime minister and form government, but in order to pass laws, they need to convince the other parties to vote with them in order to get past 50% of the House. And if more than 50% wants to kick out who don't like the prime minister, they could force a vote of no confidence, which means they force an election where people will vote again, which is what happened to Joe Clark, because Joe Clark had a minority government, and then the other parties ganged up against him and forced the new election in which Pierre Trudeau won again.
It also happened to Stephen Harper, but he turned that into a majority government. It went a lot better for him.
Yeah.
And I was very mad.
Yes. So that's how Canadian parliamentary system works, and that's what happened to Joe Clark. So what other notes do I have? Pierre Trudeau is still very bored. He calls Quebec separatism treasonous, and then argues about, splits hairs about what he said. He says,
in fairness, he saw Quebec separatism at its most actual terrorism-y.
But then when he's called out, well, not called out, but when he's asked about it by the moderator, he's like, well, I actually said almost treasonous.
He had a history of no. What I said was this.
Yeah.
And we have a clip of you dropping the F-bomb, and now you're insisting oh no, I just said fuddle duddle.
What were you thinking when you moved your lips?
What is the nature of your thoughts, gentlemen, when you say fuddle duddle or something like that?
Broadbent does compare Clark to Nixon for some reason.
Harsh.
I forget why.
Clark wasn't that bad.
Pierre Trudeau accuses Clark of, what did I write? Flip-flopping on Israel. I don't have the timestamp on that. I think that's all the notes I have. Generally, just very dry. There are a few moments where it's oh, hey, we're still talking about that right now.
Yep, Israel.
But I want to put this in F, but I'm going to put it in D for one reason, which is the cinematography in this debate is so good for some reason. It's never gotten as good as in this. I'll find some clips and I'll send it to Danny.
Interesting.
But I just want to point out this one where Pierre Trudeau is looming over in the foreground, looming over Joe Clark like Bane from The Dark Knight Rises. Let me find it.
For the kind of action that you...
He did not.
Indeed, he did.
He said if there's no agreement reached, I think it should be done unilaterally.
The cinematography never becomes as creative as in that debate for some reason. But that's the only thing saving it from becoming...
Was that cinematography or choreography, just that Trudeau happened to step the way he did?
No, because maybe, but even the zoom in and the fact that there's other ones where it's one person in the foreground and it focuses on them, and then it changes focus to a person in the background.
For whatever reason, it is more visually interesting than most of the others.
Yeah. So 1979 D tier other than it would be. I'm just going to change F to Z.
Thank you for pronouncing it Z and not Z.
Yeah. Elbows up!
Elbows up!
Anyways, 1984. So this is probably the most famous Canadian debate.
Live from Ottawa, Encounter 84. An exchange of views by the leaders of Canada's three major political parties on the issues of the federal election.
So Pierre Trudeau stepped down in 84, and just like Mark Carney, the Liberal Party selected John Turner, who was not in Parliament, to be the new leader of the Liberal Party and therefore Prime Minister. So he was the sitting Prime Minister at the time. And so he was John Turner from the Liberal Party, Brian Mulroney from the Progressive Conservative Party, and Ed Broadbent again from the NDP. Now, this is very famous because this is the one where Brian Mulroney delivers the famous "You had an option" line.
I've told you and told the Canadian people, Mr. Mulroney, that I had no option.
Well, your next question, you had an option, sir. You could have said, I am not going to do it. This is wrong for Canada. And I am not going to ask Canadians to pay the price. You had an option, sir, to say no. And you chose to say yes to the old attitudes and the old stories of the Liberal Party. That, sir, if I may say respectfully, that is not good enough for Canadians.
Do you think it was that moment that won him the election?
I mean, listen, we put a lot of like weight behind debates, like, oh, one line to win it. But true. Honestly, I think a lot of it that affects the election results mostly is just how people feel about the economy. Also, at this point, the Liberals have been in power for like a very long time, very, very long time. So I think it's.
But why couldn't Turner do what Carney did? Partly because at that point, Canadian-U.S. relations were very good.
I feel like Carney, like well, first of all, Carney, he has a more, his presentation is more like, oh, I know a lot about the economy. And also, combined with like Trump threatening to annex Canada.
That's a big part.
And usually when there's like a foreign threat to a country, they rally around the incumbent leader or the incumbent party, which really helped Carney.
Yeah.
And even then, he only won a minority. But
Carney radiates boring expertise.
Yeah, boring expertise and rally around the leader effect managed to prevent Conservatives from winning in 2025. But I will say this though, Brian Mulroney, this was the first time I heard him speak. He has a fucking sexy ass voice. You know what I mean?
He's dead, right?
He is dead.
Overall, I did not care for Mulroney. But I agree, he had the riz, as the kids say.
He had the riz. He definitely had the riz. And I love this debate because John Turney and Brian Mulroney, they're two like giant rectangular slabs of man meat just clashing. They're both like, they have super big chins, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Ed Broadbent is also trying to project like masculine energy, but you see he's kind of more like a round, droopy guy at this point.
Yeah, he's just a guy.
Yeah, but
he's just a little guy.
John Turner and Brian Mulroney, they're like these like, I wish what's his face, Steve Paikin would have moderated this debate, because he moderates a lot of debates later, and it would just be like three like crimson chin looking motherfuckers just on stage, just like yelling at each other. I think it'd be like super. It would have been like the most testosterone filled like debate ever. But yeah, so listen, I think this debate is a lot like Sleepaway Camp, which is like one of my
I look forward to hearing how you explain this.
Well, because Brian Mulroney is trans at the end. No, okay. Anyways, so everyone remembers. First of all, it's from the 1980s. Everyone remembers this for the ending. But if you watch the whole thing, it has a lot of like unhinged, memorable moments that makes it so much more than just the famous ending. You know what I mean?
There's the moment when Broadbent starts chaotic, evilly scatting.
Yeah.
And when Mulroney strides onto the debate stage saying, well.
Well, if it isn't the two lovebirds.
If it isn't the two leftist candidates.
Yeah.
I fucking love Sleepaway Camp.
Yeah.
It's so silly.
So, okay, let me I'm just going to not give okay, imagine me, I'm just watching this for this purpose of this video. Just like, oh yeah, talking about politics, whatever, the economy. But then we get to this part, okay? Let me just play this part.
Mr. Turner, I don't want to cloud a serious social issue by harping on personal idiosyncrasies. And I'm sure you don't want to do that either. But last night you continued to defend your penchant for bottom patting, despite the fact that many women, many people, women in particular perhaps, find it offensive. This, it seems to me, obviously affects your credibility on women's issues. Why don't you simply pledge to give up bottom patting right here and now? Or is it too deeply ingrained a habit to make wild promises about it?
I want women. That is a way that I would prefer it. And now,
I said last night I don't find it particularly a desirable matter to get in the derriere, and I
forgot to mention this for the 79 one, but
and I didn't say unemployed or lazy. I said you people out there who paid to break up other people's meetings, you get off your butt and work.
Okay, so I just want to bring that up. So that was the
second debate in a row.
Second debate in a row in which butts are brought up. Canadian federal party leaders can't stop talking about asses.
Why'd I get mixed up with that bitch?
Because she got a great ass!
Well, I appreciate having politicians who cannot lie and who like big butts.
Yeah, it's honesty. John Turner's like, I like big butts, and I cannot lie, with his hand motion.
If he had said that in 1984, when that song wasn't even out yet, I would have had so much respect.
Yeah.
He would have won the election.
That's true. And by the way, if you're keeping score at home, that's two Canadian debates in a row in which asses are mentioned, 0 in which tits are mentioned. So we know where Canadian leaders stand.
Well, wait till Chrétien.
He just makes honking gestures the whole time.
So I don't think this is on the public record, but how did I hear this story? I can't. Chrétien had a history of making comments to other men around him about the appearance of women, and he was a tit man.
Oh, okay. I wish it was brought up.
Yeah, I don't think it was a big public thing. He's probably still a tit man. He's still alive.
Yeah. Okay, so this goes in A. Both because it has historical importance as it's the most famous Canadian debate.
Yeah.
And also because of the asses are brought up.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna quickly look to see if there's anything I mentioned.
Is there one that's? I notice you don't put it in S, so I'm guessing there's one you have in mind as even more entertaining.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
What else? Oh yeah. Okay. At one point. Oh yeah. By the way, back to Canadian politics. So we also have a Senate, but the Senate isn't elected, and they kind of just rubber stamp everything. So there's a lot of debate, even up to this day, about like, should we get rid of the Senate? Like, what's the point of the Senate?
Yeah, probably.
And there's this. Ed Broadbent has this great line in the 1984. It's not as great as the ass stuff, but where he's like,
Our Senate, an abomination, frankly. Everyone knows in the House of Commons that it does not act as a body of sober second thought. Some people are even dubious about whether they're sober enough. But that's another question.
I just like that.
Was that a reference to some recent scandal?
I don't know, but I love the idea of it's just we're coming from that the Senate has a reputation of being drunks. Anyways, definitely I love it. Before we move on, listen, Brian Mulroney, just so we have it on record. Brian Mulroney, did a lot of like evil right wing shit.
Yeah, I don't like him.
Very good for the environment though. Like we have to give him that. Yeah, so the acid rain stuff, that was him.
Oh, okay.
The Montreal conference at banning the ozone layer destroying chloroform, that was him.
Oh.
He was like so pro environment that like people in Newfoundland lost jobs because of his like
the fisheries.
Yeah, the fishery, protecting the fisheries and stuff. Which is like very weird because normally you wouldn't expect a right wing.
Conservatives usually believe that the environment is a waste of space.
Yeah. So listen.
Right,
I'll give him this. Brian Mulroney, two things I'll give you: great voice, and thank you for being the reason I haven't had to deal with acid rain in my lifetime. And because the Montreal conference, whatever, that was the ozone layer one.
Yeah,
that he hosted that in Montreal during his.
All right,
thing.
That's worth a lot.
Yeah, because he convinced Reagan and H.W. Bush to sign the treaties about acid rain.
Yeah,
because they were like very anti-environment and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Anyways, so we'll give you
that. They didn't honor those treaties as well as they should have, but
yeah, I mean, it has worked. I mean, I haven't.
The ozone layer is in much better shape now than it was then.
Yeah.
We've got other problems environmentally, but that is no longer one of them. And I think it does provide hope that like these things we can deal with them.
I think
we don't have acid rain anymore because of legislature.
Well, we haven't had acid rain for a while. It could always change.
Oh, it could.
Based on politics.
It could.
But I will say this though. Like I think sometimes, historically speaking, you need like right-wing people to like who are stereotypically like pro-business to do this, because otherwise, Nixon made the EPA. Nixon, the expression only Nixon could go to China, because if a Democrat went to China, people would accuse them of being like pro-communist and stuff.
Yeah.
You need like people who are acting against their stereotypes of their political party to like get stuff done. Weirdly enough,
that's how you know that it is no longer a contentious point.
Yeah.
I'm not sure to what extent I would say that we credit them for this, but it is definitely a barometer at the very least.
Anyways, 1988.
Live from Ottawa, Encounter 88. An exchange of views by the leaders of Canada's three major political parties on the issues of the federal election.
Basically a rematch of 1984. So Brian Mulroney won I think it was like the biggest win in Canadian history.
It was big.
It was like more than 50% of the voting bloc. It was the last time that the winning party won like an actual majority of the votes. And
because plenty of them get a majority of the seats, but within those ridings, there's a lot of
but they might not win like more than 50% of the actual popular vote.
Yeah.
So 1988, this is significant because first time women are on stage.
This is Kim Campbell.
No, women on as moderators.
Oh,
yeah. First time women are on.
Kim's
on
not
screen.
for a few more years.
3 hours long for some reason. I have no idea why this was 3 hours long. It was pretty painful. And it's a rematch. This was about NAFTA. So John Turner, that was like the main issue there. John Turner was like accusing Brian Mulroney of like, making Canada a colony of the States by signing NAFTA.
NAFTA's a complicated issue. There are things I like about it and things I don't.
Yeah, which is funny because now we're like sort of seeing the later effects of it. But it's like, why? Because we became too dependent on them for free trade that now like tariffs are on. It's like fucking up our economy or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
think the takeaway of that is don't trust the states.
Yeah.
They will turn on you.
Or in general, like, but it's hard to like not because like they're right next to us.
I know.
They have a lot of consumers.
It's a big economy
to buy our goods.
I know.
I think even without NAFTA, like, it's kind of inevitable that at some point, because like having like trading relationships with like Europe and stuff and Asia it's good, but you have to ship things, and it's just like more of a pain in the ass.
With the States, you can just take it on a train.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so much easier.
Because I've seen things that are like, Europe is like Canada's second biggest trading partner, so we should like increase trade with them. And it's like, they're second in the sense that they're like 20%, and the States is like 70%.
Also, Europe is a continent.
Yeah, you know what I mean, like the European
whole
Union.
of Europe.
Yeah. So this one, first time women are on screen. See, there's a woman.
Yep.
There's a woman.
What? Stay seated, or else John Turner's going to sneak up behind you, lady.
Stay seated. Feminism was a big deal in this. They were all like trying to argue, like, oh, I'm the best for women.
We're right in the, just as the second wave is starting to turn into the third wave.
Yeah. And also Native women. I think this is the first time where there might have been mentions of it in the previous debates, but I think this is the first time where there was like whole sections about it, and they were all arguing about like, oh, we'll fight, abuse the words like, they didn't call they called it like,
we're already
Native
having
women,
the missing and murdered indigenous women,
which
boy, that didn't go away.
On one hand,
good job, guys.
On one hand, it fucking sucks that it's still like a major issue to this day.
Oh my god, yes.
But on the other hand, it's kind of like weirdly. Like, even back then,
they cared at all?
They cared back then.
All right.
That, like, even, like, across thing, it was something that they at least, like, paid lip service to.
Yeah, even in the 80s.
The matter of Aboriginal rights is one. I don't think that Canada will be complete as a nation until that matter is effectively resolved.
But it's kind of cool seeing, like, the political landscape of current-day Canada being built bit by bit.
Yeah. And there are still residential schools in operation at the time of this debate.
For a whole decade after this debate.
They last shockingly long.
Yeah. Anyways, overall, a few interesting bits here or there, but the fact that it's 3 hours long docks it a lot of points. Because, 3 hours long, I didn't take a lot of notes from this, so clearly not a lot of it was interesting. But
should we explain what residential schools are?
Oh yeah, so basically, the Canadian government,
we wanted to civilize Indigenous people. Big air quotes.
Mainly the Catholic Church, I think.
Yeah.
They wanted to civilize. They wanted to kill the Indian, save the child.
Yeah.
By basically, it's just like cultural genocide. Put Indigenous children in schools to teach them like how to assimilate into Canadian culture.
And when we say residential schools, they were also just like taken away from their parents. They were not going home. It was a mandatory boarding school.
A lot of graves were recently found.
Yeah, because even on paper, this thing was horrifying, but it was so much worse than that because there were all these abuses going on, and these kids were getting molested. A lot of them were dying in ways that I'm not going to say for sure that they were being murdered, but I am going to say that we should have an investigation into why so many kids' deaths were being covered up.
Yes.
Maybe it was a disease going around, but they should have done something about it.
Read the book Indian Horse. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention who won 1984. Definitely Brian Mulroney. I think he.
You mentioned that.
Yeah. Okay. Brian Mulroney won 1984. Ed Broadbent, I'd say, won 1979. 1988. Once again, Brian Mulroney. It's the same like three people from 1984. So there's no reason why it wouldn't be Brian Mulroney again.
You think he has the best showing in '88?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Most of it's his voice. His voice definitely carries. Yeah. He's definitely the deep, gravelly like voice. Yeah, but other than that, not a lot of interesting stuff. I watched all 3 hours, couldn't find a lot of interesting things I wanted to talk about.
No fun sound bites about butt padding?
But no. But I will also mention this. I'm going to point out the dumbest thing that each party has said over the course of these debates.
Okay.
NDP has one here. Now, when I say dumb, listen, I'm not going to say the smartest thing, because I feel like if you're preparing for a debate, you're basically practicing for weeks and weeks to sound smart. So saying, the smartest thing a party says is kind of like...
That's the thing that you personally agree with most.
Yeah,
and that's just not interesting content.
Yeah, but it's easy to find out when the dumb things that people say stand out the most. So in here, the NDP, for some reason, says, we think Canada should have a two-party system. Ed Broadbent of the New Democratic Party, Canada's perpetual. I'll find it. Canada's perpetual third and fourth choice says Canada should. I'll find it. It's two.
For non-Canadians, you should know the NDP has never formed a government.
Yeah,
ever. There's never been an NDP prime minister.
The highest they've gone was second place.
Yeah, and that was a fluke. I won't say a fluke. That was a rarity.
Yeah.
But the NDP, all of their power comes from when there is a usually liberal minority government that need the NDP for votes in the setup we discussed earlier.
Mr. Broadbent, during the campaign you've been advocating a two-party system after...
The emphasis I had was on clear choices for Canadians. And what I wanted is, on the one hand, we have Mr. Mulroney in the Conservative Party on free trade, on taxes, on regional development, has very different positions from ours. We have a clear, consistent option that we've had for a number of years, and it seemed to me that if Canadians are really looking for a fair, reasonable alternative to the Conservatives, it's New Democratic Party.
I want to ask Mr. Broadbent if he really believes he wants to reduce the system to a two-party system. When he finishes third in this election, will he disband the New Democratic Party?
Mr. Turner, you're in third place, sir, not me. Your party is running third, so I think it's more likely that you will be facing that question.
Well, we'll see, but I'll look forward to your fulfilling that commitment.
We're starting.
So, just to be clear, he thinks that in a two-party system, it would be the NDP and not the Liberals.
Yeah, not...
He thinks the Liberals would be the party that we would get rid of.
I mean, it almost happened in 2011, but then Jack Layton died.
That was... But, like, there are... That was a rarity when the NDP formed the official opposition, but... Yeah.
I know, right?
What's happened since then? The Liberals are back. The NDP are not doing so hot right now. They'll be back again in a few years. Next election, the NDP will probably bounce back a little bit.
But isn't that just, like, the wildest thing for an NDP person to say?
Like, and, like, obviously, if he wants to increase the NDP's clout... The argument isn't we should be a two-party system, it's we should have ranked ballots.
Yeah, or something like that.
That would be great for the NDP.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's the dumbest thing any NDP person has said.
Even dumber than gay people belong in crazy houses.
Anyways, I'm going to put this in C.
Yeah.
I'm going to put it at C, because the 3 hour length time really
that's a strike against it.
Yeah.
Just like those new Mission Impossible movies, which are 3 hours and not that great. Oh, we don't get the Bells of Peace Tower this time?
No. It's all 90s and rad and hip.
There are two dramatic differences between tonight's debate and others that have taken place in the past. First, there are 5 party leaders participating.
So, so the 1993 debate, I think this is like the most important or the most consequential election in like modern Canadian history, and I'll explain why. But just to recap, so it's Jean Chrétien of the the Liberal Party, Kim Campbell of the Progressive Conservative Party, Preston Manning of the Reform Party.
Preston Manning.
What's his face? Lucien Bouchard of the Bloc Québécois, and Audrey McLaughlin of the New Democratic Party.
So the Reform Party are they're also conservative, but they're not progressive conservatives.
Yeah. So basically what happened was, so Brian Mulroney, spoiler alert, won the 1988 election, won re-election as prime minister, and he fucked up so badly that he created 2 new parties. So the Reform Party is like a right-wing party that like wants to create a right-wing alternative to the Progressive Conservative Party.
So they're like the PPC.
Basically, yeah.
And little more legit.
Yeah. And the failure, I think it's called the Meech Lake Accords or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Pissed off Quebec so much that they formed the Bloc Québécois, which is a... by the way, the Bloc Québécois is my least favorite party. I fucking hate them. But the Bloc... I'll explain why as we go on. But Bloc Québécois ran by Lucien Bouchard. To be clear, I don't hate Quebec. I don't hate Quebecois people.
There's some cool stuff in Quebec.
I just hate this party. And as the more I watch the debates, the more I hate them. So let's
talk about the Bloc's platform a bit. They're not necessarily a separatist
platform. They were created as a separatist platform. Not so much anymore.
They're not. They know that fight is long gone. Yeah. But they are very Quebec folk. They don't run in seats outside of Quebec. It is theoretically impossible for them to ever form a government.
Well, they could if they win all the seats in Quebec, and then all the other seats in Canada are divided so equally that none of them have more.
Even then, I don't think that's mathematically possible. But they...
we need a lot of fringe parties to also win.
We would. We need more fringe parties.
Yeah.
But the Bloc are concerned only with stuff in Quebec, culturally, economically, etc. Mm-hmm. They're occasionally... As I'm afraid, much as I love you, Quebec, I gotta say this, they're occasionally pretty darn racist about black and brown people living in Quebec.
Because here's the thing, the whole thing about the Bloc Québécois and like Quebec parties who run it is that they are so like pro French language, they're not bilingual. Quebec is not bilingual. They're only French.
Montreal's effectively bilingual.
But when you think about that, how many Chinese immigrants speak French compared to speaking English?
But, like, even if you did come in speaking French, I'm thinking about Montreal's sizable Haitian population.
Yeah.
These people speak French. That's why they moved to Quebec, not Toronto.
Yeah.
They are coming up from Haiti, but they're not white Quebecois, even though they speak French, and they still get treated like shit.
Yeah. Even if you don't, but like even other than the blatant racism, just the sort of like we're not actually racist, we just want to promote French language. Even that is still like, because if you look at the demographics, Quebec is like much more white than other provinces. Even like the.
What about like Saskatchewan?
No, well we can look it up. Yeah, 68% European demographics of Quebec. It's 81% European. So yeah. Much more white than even the provinces we consider like, oh, they're right-wing provinces. Yeah. So, and a lot of this is a result of like, because if you're an immigrant, you're much more likely to speak English or be able to learn English than French. So,
and if you come into the country as maybe you're a refugee or something, neither language, you have to learn one of them quickly. It's going to be English.
Yeah. So that's my point is... Don't hate me, Quebec. I mean, if you're gonna comment, I'm not gonna understand.
You can hate me, Quebec. I don't.
Yeah, you can comment. You know what? Yeah, send your angry comments. We're not gonna understand it because we don't speak. That's not true. I can read French.
Don't come at Jimmy. Come at me. I can take it.
And by the way, like I'm Chinese, just so you know. So like I.
Oh, now they are gonna come at you.
Oh no. How do you say sorry in French?
Désolé.
Désolé, Québec.
Je suis très désolé.
Je suis chinois. Je déteste le Bloc Québécois.
There is a place just outside of Montreal. It's a suburb, basically, called Lachine. And the reason it's called that was like Cartier or whoever, the explorers, like, China's got to be around here somewhere.
So let's just
go a little further. We'll get that Silk Road money.
It's like an extreme version of calling indigenous people Indians.
It's that. It's exactly that.
Let's just call this place the thing we're looking for. Anyways, the reason I consider this the most consequential in modern Canadian history election is because this really shaped up. This is like the turning point of how we got to our modern day Canadian politics. Because the Progressive Conservative Party ran by Kim Campbell lost so hard. They were down to 2 seats. So much so that later they had to combine with the Reform Party. So really, the current modern day Conservative Party is just the Reform Party. because the Reform Party had much more
that's
seats
true.
than the Progressive Conservative Party.
Kim Campbell is also our only female prime minister, although she was never formally elected.
Yeah, because Brian Mulroney was so unpopular, he bailed, and they just picked Kim Campbell to replace him.
It's the John Turner thing. It's the Mark Carney thing, except sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, like it worked for Paul Martin.
It worked for Paul Martin. We're coming up on that.
And then Lucien Bouchard, the Bloc Québécois. So right now in modern day politics, we have Liberal Party, Conservative Party, which is really just Reform Party, NDP, and Bloc Québécois, and also the Greens. Anyways, so that's why I consider this the most consequential, because it's sort of how we got to the hinge that got to where we are today.
Yep.
But as for the debate itself, it has studio audience. This is the first time the Bechdel test was passed.
But why would your government put immigration together in the reorganization with public security? Why are you saying to immigrants that you can be treated as criminals? What have immigrants got to do with policing? And why, of all the other departments, would you choose the Department of Security? I find this incredible, and I find it insulting and unacceptable.
Well, perhaps you ought to read the policy, because the restructuring of government puts all of the policy with respect to immigration into the Human Resources Department, and it makes...
Okay, anyways, but you get my point. Two named females talking to each other about something other than a man.
I mean, some of those immigrants and security people are men, but there's an exception I saw for the Bechdel test that if it's like two female lawyers talking about a male client as their client, not as he's got a cute butt, that's considered okay. That does pass the Bechdel test because they're talking about him in a way that furthers the story.
Yeah. Oh, but there's also the exceptions to the Bechdel test where it's like, I forgot about this, where it's like two women, they can't be talking about babies, they can't be talking about
makeup, shopping,
or immigration laws. So maybe this doesn't actually count. Maybe this doesn't actually count.
Man, the room just goes out of its way to fail the Bechdel test. Every time there's two women in a room, all they're talking about is either Johnny, Mark, or shopping.
Yeah. Or Kim Campbell's immigration.
Or breast cancer.
Anyways, so what are the notes I have? At the beginning, Kim Campbell does this really weird... I actually think Kim Campbell comes out okay in this debate. I think Jean Chrétien, just because he's so bad at communicating in English, he comes off the worst.
It is so fascinating to me that he had such a long career. People found him so charming when he's such a, weird guy who can't speak either language.
Well, because what helped him a lot was the fact that the right-wing vote was split between Reform and PC during his whole thing. So he won 3 consecutive majorities.
At some point, he was able to turn all of his weird quirks and foibles into charming traits.
Yeah.
And he was hugely successful.
I have a lot of positive feelings towards Jean Chrétien because he was prime minister both when I was born and when I immigrated to Canada. So, I have a lot of nostalgia for him.
Same.
But in terms of he was not a good speaker at all.
No.
We'll put up clips out.
And the whole time people were... often affectionately, but people were making fun of his inability to express himself.
Yeah.
I remember so many jokes about that.
In Kim Campbell's opening statement, she basically just talks about the other people, and she's like, "Oh, they have a plan, but it won't work. The NDP has a plan, but it won't work." And it just seems just weirdly dismissive without any elaboration on
boss move.
Any of the actual details. Let me see.
Let's talk about Preston Manning.
Preston Manning, I actually think he was the best debater in this debate.
Really?
I think, you can sort of tell why he became popular and he wrested control from the Progressive Conservatives. Everything he says is very he comes off as oh, I'm like a professor, policy wonk, and I'm gonna explain to you how these policies, blah blah blah. He's the what's his face? The Ross Perot of Canada. You know what I mean? Yeah, okay. It just sort of comes I think he sort of stands out as oh, I'm gonna explain my policies very concisely and blah.
I can't remember. I remember I didn't like him, but I can't remember exactly why. Wasn't he a raging homophobe or something?
100%. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not just conflating him with Stockwell Day. That's true of both of them.
Yeah.
Fuck Stockwell Day, but we'll get to that.
Well, Joe, I'd start by saying again, get to the root of the problem. Let's say take one program, Medicare. Now, it's our assessment that healthcare is ill itself. It's got a financial illness, and many people there know that that's the case. Hospitals being closed, you have friends, relatives.
I just want to point out, everyone's wearing huge shoulder pads.
It looks like David Byrne.
like Audrey
Yeah.
Maclean.
It's that
It
80s
looks,
power suit look.
yeah, you see how her like shoulder passes move up when she moves her arm. Her hands look so tiny, like.
Oh yeah.
Like literally,
It was
she's
the
like
sky,
a
let
she's
me
like
die.
a wall, yeah. But so there are a lot of things that you're talking about that we still talk about today. You know, President Manning mentioned about getting rid of internal trade barriers, and that's something that Mark Carney's talking about.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Anything else?
I don't know why we had internal trade barriers in the first place. If I could go into a liquor store in Toronto and pick up a bottle of British Columbian gin, like, how is that not a good thing to help Empress Gin or whoever expand their market? Like,
oh, also, so the other reason why, and we could have mentioned why this election was so important, was because after this election, Quebec did a referendum on if they want to leave.
Yes, they
Canada. And they lost very narrowly by like less than 1%.
it was close.
Yeah. So the stakes are high for like the 90s debates.
I believe that the majority of the Quebecers, when that will come down to choose, they will always choose Canada because, you know, they intrinsically know very well that if we are still French today, it's because we were part of Canada. The Francophone who were part of the United States, the northern part of the United States have been assimilated. But we had the magic in Canada to make a country where it is possible to be different and equal at the same time. Everybody knows that I'm French. You know, I have the proper accent to prove it.
Okay, so that was like a major issue then.
So I just want to stress to non-Canadian viewers who are unfamiliar with Jean Chrétien, he mentioned that he had the accent to prove he was French. Quebecois, French Canadians, also think he has a funny accent.
Yeah.
They don't think he sounds like them.
They said he was, the joke was he was not fluent in either of Canada's official
because he was
languages.
born like right on the border between
Yeah.
Ontario and Quebec. Also, as you may have noticed, his mouth is partly paralyzed. He's got the Stallone
Yeah.
thing. And
and this isn't a joke about his
let's not
his
be
Bell's
ableist,
palsy, but he looks like Boris Karloff is Frankenstein's monster. Big, like, his big head.
Yeah, the big head.
Forehead.
I see it.
What else is interesting here that I should mention before we bring...
I think for a long time, because this guy, he was prime minister for most of the 90s. He was hugely successful. I think a lot of people just thought it was fun that he was this weird, kooky guy who spoke in a funny voice.
Yeah. Oh, so going back to what I said about how like the whole French language thing is a racist scam.
Question for Mr. Bouchard from a fellow Quebecer from Montreal, Luigi Laracuta.
Good evening. I'd like to say good evening to all the member of the panel. My question concerns the immigration issue. I'm proud to be Italian-Canadian. My parents were born in Italy. However, immigrants entering Quebec, okay, I have a problem with this, is that they are restricted to go to French schools. That means educated in French. What happened to the bilingual Canada? Why are they not? Why don't they have the choice to speak French or English, or being educated in French or English?
Since you live in Montreal, this has to do with the fact that Quebec is mainly a French society, and that Quebecers think that the common culture must be francophone, and that the main trunk to meet and live in Quebec has to be in French. That's why when immigrants come to Quebec, they must integrate in French. Of course, they have the right, and Quebec encourages them to keep their culture and their own language, but the collective life in Quebec must be French.
So basically just like, it is what it is.
Yeah.
He's just sort of like going back like, whoa, why is it like this? And he's like, well, yeah, it's like this because it's like this. Listen, if you're mad at me because listen, I voted Liberal in the last election, but if you're like conservative and you're mad at me because I voted Liberal, just know I would totally like team up with you to beat up the Bloc Québécois.
I wouldn't. If you voted conservative and you're mad at me because I voted Liberal, go fuck yourself.
And now you're saying, well, I think Canadian taxpayers should pay us to come to Ottawa to help make Canada fail.
Okay, I just wanted to get that clip in because that's true.
Sorry, I didn't have enough context. What's she saying?
She's saying to the Bloc guy, you want Canadian voters to vote for the Bloc so they could go to Ottawa and make Canada fail, by which she means split Canada in half or whatever.
Yeah, all right.
It's true. Because
in 93, she's right.
Yeah, but isn't that like a weird, like here's the thing. I don't understand why, because listen, when I watch these debates, and I see like the Conservative Party and the Liberal Party and arguing, and even if I like disagree with them, it's like I get why you're here. Why is the Bloc there? Because I can't vote for the Bloc. They're not in my riding. Why do I need to wait for like? Why does like half an hour, a quarter of like every debate like has to be like this person selling me on like a product that I can't? Not only would not benefit me at all, but also
is it one of the selling points? That it won't benefit you.
Yeah, it's just wasting my time. Anyways, before I move on, there's this one funny bit.
Oh man, these haircuts.
Well, before I say anything, I'd like to ask all of you to look in your crystal balls up there and tell me if the Blue Jays are going to win the World Series.
Sure, very likely.
We hope so.
Okay, and they did.
Oh,
Blue Jays won
yeah.
that year, so
Yeah,
that's
they
good.
did.
Okay, anyways, so sorry, that was like...
That's a funny little moment. That's cute.
Yeah. I'm going to put this in A. I think that was a pretty good one.
All right.
And welcome to the 1997 Leaders Debate, coming to you live from the
Where's my
Government Conference
goddamn
Center
shot
here
of the
in
Peace
Ottawa.
Tower with bells
There are
ringing?
5 party leaders participating tonight.
Okay, so 1997 Canadian federal election. Jean Chrétien...
We're not going to let her introduce them?
I'll do it quickly.
All right.
I like to hear myself talk. Anyways, Jean Chrétien had become prime minister with the massive majority, helped a lot by the fact that both, the progressive conservatives once were unpopular and also
the conservative vote is split.
Yeah, it was split. So Jean Chrétien's the Liberal Party incumbent prime minister. The progressive conservatives replaced Kim Campbell with Jean Charest.
He was the premier of Quebec.
Yeah.
I helped to ruin his career.
You helped to ruin his career?
I mean, it wasn't just me. You remember, like, this was in, like, 2012, 13.
Mm-hmm.
The Quebec government wanted to increase tuition for all non-Quebecois students at post-secondary education.
Mm-hmm.
I was at McGill at the time, and there was this big protest movement that we were called the Red Square Marchers. We pinned little red squares of fabric to our shirts. I'm not sure why. And we went out and marched to protest to keep tuition low. And not everyone in the province agreed with us, but people did want us to shut the fuck up. And they voted Charest out because they blamed him for all this uproar.
That's really funny. Wait, but what was the consequences of that in terms of the policy?
It was kept low for a few more years, but now it has eventually been ramped up, which
okay.
sucks.
That does suck. Jean Charest of the Progressive Conservatives, Preston Manning again for the Reform Party. Oh, get this. So the NDP lady from last debate was Audrey Maclean.
Mm-hmm.
This debate, I had to do
Kyle
a double
McLaughlin.
take. No, I had to do a double take. This is another lady called Alexa McDonough.
I remember her.
Yeah, but I was just like, wait, is that just like the same? It's a similar sounding name. Yeah. And the fucking Bloc guy. So Lucien Bouchard is out. It's fucking Gilles Duceppe. Now listen. Gilles Duceppe was before I started paying attention to politics. I only learned of his existence from watching these debates for this video. He is my fucking arch nemesis. I fucking hate this man. He is the worst. Now let me tell you, I'm the biggest hater. I hate the way
Hating people can be fun sometimes.
Je teste
if you have good reason.
Je teste how do you say your the way that you walk?
Le mode de ton.
The tongue.
How do you say walk?
Marche.
Yeah.
I hate. You know what? Fuck you. I'm not even gonna say French. I hate the way that you walk. Je te déteste. Yeah.
Yeah.
Je te déteste. I'm not gonna say vous because that's too polite.
That's polite.
And so Gilles Duceppe, you're the reason I hate the Bloc Québécois so much. Your voice.
I don't like Bouchard either.
But Bouchard, Gilles Duceppe's voice is so fucking annoying. A.
I haven't heard it in a while.
And B. He's in 7 of these fucking things. They just kept him around forever. They did not switch him out for his career was like 1997 to fucking 2015. Like 20 fucking years of his annoying high-pitched squeaking voice.
Yeah, it was there for a while.
Anyways,
I remember hearing him described as the Jar Jar Binks of Canadian politics.
Yes, he's always fucking there.
And we have always failed since the last 30 years. Instead of putting all our energy on those discussions, we should accept that Quebec is different, that we facing two nations, two different countries, and with a new partnership.
Oh, good
that's
for
exactly
you.
what they did in Europe.
I would not hate the bloc. And once again, I can't vote for the bloc. I don't want to vote for the bloc.
But you couldn't if you wanted to.
Yeah, you know what, Gilles Duceppe, you make me want to move to Quebec so that I could specifically vote against the Bloc Québécois. That's how, so I can ABQ.
I did that. I didn't move there just so I could vote against them, but while I lived there, I voted against them.
Yes.
And against the Conservatives, because, those were the Harper years,
obviously. But, anyways, fuck the Bloc Québécois. I hate you. Mostly because of Gilles Duceppe. I hate that. I agree with the Bloc on some things, but Gilles Duceppe is so... I personally hate this man so much.
There are Bloc policies that I like.
Yeah.
I like their kind of welfare statey European Union-y ideas about like tax credits for new families, environment stuff. Like they are good on some stuff. It is hard to place them on a left-right spectrum because their positions on some things are pretty far left and on others are pretty far right. They're kind of all over the place in a way that doesn't really make sense that much to me.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
I'm sure they make perfect sense if you're in Quebec.
Yes. So to this debate, this debate's also pretty good because the 1990s debate, they were pretty like high stakes because this is right after the Quebec referendum.
Yeah. And we don't know at this time that there won't be another referendum that might go a little differently. And
so like I said, I was gonna point out the dumbest thing that each of these parties said. This is the dumbest thing the Bloc Québécois said.
All right, let's find the clip. Anything is dumb if you hear it in Duceppe's voice.
You've lost two referendums. You do not accept the will of Quebec, want to stay in Canada, and you talk referendum and separation, and the money is quitting Quebec. And who is paying the price? It is the workers in Quebec who pay the price.
Will you accept a yes vote in the next referendum, like we're accepting the results of last referendum, because we're still in Canada?
If you accepted the results of the last referendum, there wouldn't be another referendum.
And indeed,
there wasn't.
So, yes, I do accept the results.
Yes. Anyway, so that's the Bloc.
They just recently had a vote on whether to have a referendum or whether to explore the possibility of a referendum on it. And the answer was pretty resoundingly no.
Yes. I love this debate because everyone's piling on Gilles Duceppe. And because
he's very unpopular in English-speaking Canada, and English-speaking Canada is who is watching this debate.
Yes, and also to people who have ears, because his voice is so annoying. And Jean Chrétien was right. Like, he's like...
Yes.
Yeah, because he points this out, but a lot of money left Quebec because of uncertainty of the separatism stuff. A lot of businesses either moved operations out of Quebec or they were going to start operations in Quebec and then change their headquarters to Toronto or something.
Uncertainty is very bad for business, and that's something we're finding out again this year with all the tariffs. Tariffs.
Yeah.
How high will the tariffs be?
Yeah, and it's not like
what does the Mad King want today?
Yeah, and it's not like Quebec has oil money, so it's like they can't even. And to be fair, if Alberta separates, the federal government's gonna keep the pipelines and shit. So
also you got to deal with land treaties with Indigenous groups because they signed those treaties with Canada, not with the sovereign Republic of Alberta.
Yeah,
that would create a huge crisis if Alberta left. The part of it that leaves will not be the whole thing; it will be pretty darn small. And I think if Quebec left Canada and tried to stand on its own as a sovereign nation, I don't think it would go very well for them.
I don't think,
and they know that.
I think they would just materially, it would be more like what it is now, except they just get to call themselves.
Yeah,
because I don't think
economically, I don't think they have.
Yeah, I don't think there's gonna be like a passport system or anything, because that'd be too annoying for truckers and stuff, right? Because
I think there would be.
Think there would be,
and that's why it's such a bad idea.
Yeah,
and I think Quebec, they know this. They never separate.
Because how before 9/11, we didn't need a passport to go to the States.
Yeah,
I think it would be kind of like that with Quebec.
I don't think it would be a gracious split. It would be like when Brexit happened, and the rest of Europe wasn't like, oh, okay, well, we'll still let you have this. They're like, no, fuck you.
Yeah.
I think if Quebec left, the rest of Canada would be mad at them.
Yeah.
And Quebec would want to assert their independence, so they wouldn't really be that interested in, we'll still share some things.
Yeah. Well, I think at some point they'll realize, we have to. Whoops.
Well, Quebec have they have a perfectly good deal. Quebec is doing just fine as part of Canada. Yeah. They know that leaving is a bad idea. They know that they've... Yeah. What's the alternative? Be a state? Yeah. Hell no.
I am going to put another clip of like an audience roasting the Quebec separatists.
Are we ever going to be able to meet the demands of the separatists without separating our country? Will it continue like a spoiled child? The more they get, the more they're going to want.
Fuck them up, dude.
Okay, I don't know. Cretin's answer was pretty generic, but yes, roast fucking Gilles Duceppe to his fucking face.
A spoiled child.
So I'm just gonna put this in a high A for now.
All right.
It's gonna stay there, but before we move on, there's a few more things I want to talk about because like I like these debates. As they get more interesting, there's more stuff to talk about. So
this is gonna be a long video.
Yeah. So I and also because there's more candidates now than there were before.
Yep.
Jean Charest is fucking funny, and like, cause he looks fucking funny. Like,
cut spending in Ottawa, program spending by 19%.
He doesn't have that hair anymore. I'll tell you that.
Oh, that sucks. But he looks like fucking like Carrot Top, kind of, right? He looks like this goofy, like sort of clown-like guy, right?
And when Mr. Chrétien says it's because of the deficit, I beg to defer with him.
I just want to point out that he says beg to defer instead of beg to differ.
Yeah, that's not what defer means.
Yeah. Anyways,
I beg to talk about this later.
Yeah. Anyways, okay. So he's at some point he pulls out a newspaper, like as if, like I said, the Carrot Top comparisons continue because he literally pulls out a prop. I'll send it to you later. But he pulls out a prop, and he's just like he just has this weird, goofy energy to him, right?
Yeah.
There are 4 things I want to do for the country. A, cut taxes, payroll taxes, to reduce the cost of creating a job. Reduce personal income taxes so that we can afford more consumption. Canadians can go out and spend. Secondly, I want to bring down interprovincial trade barriers. 3, a stronger emphasis and national leadership on education and training. 5, eliminate the regulatory burden. These 5 things, there are 4 things.
For 3 reasons. A, I'm not that lucky. 2, we have smoke detectors. And D,
do you remember him, like, when you were in...
A little bit.
Okay. At this point, he just, like, he seems really silly. He keeps mentioning that he traveled the country. It's like he needs you to understand that I traveled the country and I talked to every Canadian. Oh, and at some point, the same thing happens between these two, where there's this one between 97 and 93 where the NDP lady is just shouting at Preston Manning for like an extended period of time, and it begins.
I'd shout at Preston Manning for an extended
but it begins with like a rhetorical question, and then Preston Manning is like, "Let me answer it," but then they just.
No wonder you couldn't stand up to this government and hold them accountable for breaking the commitment. You said when you got into that parliament, governments can't do anything about jobs, and you did nothing about jobs until the last few months leading into this election.
Well, you
did not perform your role as an effective opposition when this government was cutting healthcare and cutting education and cutting the CBC and cutting its commitment to child care. Why? Because as the opposition, you weren't doing anything to stand up to them on any of those things. You were saying cut further, cut faster, cut deeper, cut into the bone marrow.
You asked me a question.
Is there any accountability for opposition parties?
Okay, Ms. McDonough, you asked.
Okay, anyways, okay.
Shut the fuck up, Preston. You don't get to answer.
This is A tier for the entertainment value. Okay.
2000.
Good evening, I'm Ann Medina, and welcome to the Leaders Debate 2000, coming to you live from the National Arts Centre here in Ottawa.
Oh, I know that place. I saw Jethro Tull there.
Jethro Tull?
Yeah, the band. I saw them at the National Arts Centre.
Okay, 2000, so in 1997, Jean Chrétien won, another majority. Yeah, look, he aged another...
It's a stressful job.
Yeah, it's a stressful job. And people kept trying to kill him.
I guess it's close to Remembrance Day with that poppy.
Yeah. And by the way, multiple times, people have tried to kill Jean Chrétien. I just want people to know that.
So
One
weird.
time they broke into his house.
Oh, yeah.
And he, like, defended himself with a piece of art on his mantle or something.
Yes.
Another time...
He went all Dial M for murder and
Yeah.
Just defend. Yeah.
And another time, someone tried to like attack him on the street, and he like gave him the old what's it called Shawnee something handshake.
Shawinigan
handshake.
Yes. Don't fuck with Jean Chrétien. He will beat you up. He will defend himself.
So while the 1997 one is mostly people piling up on the separatists, 2000 is mostly people piling up on Jean Chrétien. Because he's been in power for so long.
He's the guy to target now.
So Jean Chrétien was for the Liberals. Duceppe was still for the Bloc Québécois. Stockwell Day, so the Reform Party turned into the Canadian Alliance. And this is the fucking, like, Schmidt from New Girl looking motherfucker.
That is not fair to Schmidt.
Lex McDonald is still for... Dunnett is still for the NDP. Joe Clark, who you might remember from 79, former Prime Minister Joe Clark, the Progressive Conservatives were so desperate to, like, have power again. They're like, let's bring back nostalgia person Joe Clark, who was Prime Minister for 9 months in 1980 or 1979.
Clearly a winning candidate. Clearly we have brought King Arthur back from under Glastonbury Hill to save the day.
Okay, so what's there to talk about? Duceppe's still fucking awful, still not accepting the referendum. Joe Clark, his voice is still as low as when he was younger.
Probably even lower.
Yeah, but it's like he aged into it.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's sort of like, I hope this isn't mean, but he sort of feels like Jamie Lee Curtis, where I feel like when they were young, their voice was kind of made them seem older than they were, and they sort of like aged into like their vibes. Does that make sense?
Kind of. You know who Joe Clark always reminded me of was Dave Thomas from Wendy's.
No. What, the restaurant?
Yeah.
I don't know what that guy looks like. Oh, but we are going to edit in.
You don't remember Dave Thomas and all the Wendy's ads? I like adopting children. I like hamburgers.
We are going to edit in Joe Clark with Wendy's pigtails, though.
Wendy's nuts go in your mouth.
Yeah. Anyways, he seems very anachronistic. He seems like a fantasy guy from like Middle Earth with this like little whimsical like... You know what I mean? Like
Joe Clark seems like a guy whose shoes
from the 70s.
Curl up
exactly.
at the tips.
Yeah, he seems from another world than the year 2000.
He's a gnome. He's our political gnome. Or he was. Is he still alive?
Yes. Because he was very young, so if he's still alive.
Yeah, he's not that old here.
Stockwell Days comes off as the fakest motherfucker.
Stockwell Day is... You know what he's up to these days?
What?
He thinks that Canada should join the States.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, Stockwell Day, he wants referenda on like gay rights and abortions and stuff.
Yes, I remember there was this whole thing. He thought that those should be put up entirely to popular vote. And then Rick Mercer got up and said, like, in that case, we're going to have a referendum on whether Stockwell Day should legally be forced to change his first name to Doris. And he got as many votes as Stockwell Day was saying should be enough.
We demand that the government of Canada force Stockwell Day to change his first name to Doris. Now, anytime there's a national referendum, yes, it costs about $150 million. But I think I speak for all taxpayers when I say it's worth every penny.
Nothing was really interesting here, honestly. Stockwell Day has this weird soundbite where he compares Jean Chrétien to King John, like, because he's like, oh, Jean Chrétien is like a dictatorial, just like King John.
King John signed Magna Carta. He was as not dictatorial as you could reason with them, and that was because he failed at being a dictator.
Yeah.
But it was okay when Richard did it.
And then...
I think what Canadians know is that 37 days of Dr. Jekyll doesn't make up for 7 years of Mr. Hyde.
So, and I'm just like, no, don't compare Chrétien to Mr. Hyde. Compare him to Frankenstein's fucking monster, because he looks like Frankenstein.
Well,
anyways.
I mean, Mr. Hyde is a weird-looking guy.
Yeah. Also, she has this, like, another, like,
That's such a good book, by the way. It's so much better a book than Frankenstein.
Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde? I should read it.
It's so good.
I feel like because I know the twist.
Yes.
It's like less...
people know the twist so well, they don't even know that it's a twist.
Yeah. Endangered species legislation for the second time. It's become extinct.
Okay, so she makes that it's become extinct joke about the Endangered Species Act. The worst thing that the Liberal Party has ever, not worst, but like the dumbest thing the Liberal Party has ever said in a debate happens to Jean Chrétien here. And it's not so much what he says as like what the way he says it. It's that at one point Joe Clark asked Jean Chrétien, hey, what have you accomplished in your like decade of being in power? or 7 years. And and that's like should be like an answer that if you're prime minister, you should
have something
like ready. But instead, he's just like,
what have you done in 7 years? That's my question.
Yes, we've done a lot. These things are extremely important. We have a surplus. We have invented. We have
the surpluses?
You talk about the scholarship.
Maybe the
program.
internet also.
We have innovation.
Okay. Anyways,
Gilles Doucette piping in with his stupid Al Gore joke.
Yeah, stupid Al Gore joke. Anyways, I'm gonna
Al
put
Gore
this
never
in.
claimed to have invented the internet.
I'm gonna put this in low C. That was kind of painful to get through.
Yeah.
But luckily, the next few are very easily ranked. 2004.
So this is when Paul Martin is
Yeah.
the guy.
Good evening. Welcome to the English Language Leaders Debate. For the next 2 hours, we will hear...
Okay, I'm not even going to play this. Yeah. 2004, super boring. So Paul Martin replaces Chrétien as the Liberal leader and Prime Minister.
And he does win election.
Yeah.
The way Carney just did, and the way Kim Campbell and John Turner failed to
do. Stephen Harper. So the Progressive Conservatives and the Reform formed the current Conservative Party under Stephen Harper.
Yeah,
Gilles Doucep's still fucking the Bloc Québécois. Jack Layton is here. I think Jack Layton's cool, but like young Jack Layton's kind of like unpolished and he's not a great debater.
Let's look at how weird they look as young people.
Yeah.
Youngish people.
Good evening.
Shut the fuck up, Gilles.
And the word debate is just behind all of them at all times, as if you need to know what you're doing.
A reminder. Hey, Paul, how you doing?
Paul Martin's like fucking Nathan Lane energy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. My grandmother really liked him. So I always said that he looked like the T-1000.
Yeah.
Stephen Harper looks like the T-1000. Less so as he got older, but
yeah.
Those cold, dead eyes.
Yes.
Hey, Jack.
He also has this whimsical energy, like 2000s Joe Clark does.
I miss when our elected leaders and officials, when our prime ministerial candidates had facial hair.
Yeah.
I think we need more mustaches in our politics.
Yeah, I agree. And Justin Trudeau had for like briefly during COVID.
Yeah, I think Trudeau's beard was a mistake, and he realized it.
He also used to have like a evil supervillain goatee.
Yeah, it was not a good look. I don't think everyone should have facial hair.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was right to give it a shot and right to realize, nah.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess, the NDP are keeping facial hair legacy alive. I hope that because, Mulcair had a beard, Singh's got his big old beard.
Yeah.
I hope the next guy's got a beard. If it's a guy, it could be a lady, in which case I
also
have no opinion whether
I
she has
also
a beard.
kind of want them to have a
That'd
beard.
be interesting.
Yeah. Anyways, 2004, very boring.
Or a non-binary person.
Extremely boring.
That'd be bold.
But here, anything interesting? Oh, yeah, so Paul Martin was under this whole sponsorship scandal thing.
Yeah. I didn't really care too much.
Yeah.
about that.
He was the only prime minister with the initials PM. Anything interesting here? Harper says he supports the Iraq War, which
of course he did.
Fuck him.
Mark Carney's initials are MC. I just realized that.
And by the way, guess what? So the next next two debates after this are the exact same 4 people, and they all fucking suck. They're all so boring. I'm not even gonna play them because they're so boring.
At some point, they start filming them in the Canadian History Museum, don't they?
Is
like
this
right in the main hall.
Is it this?
I'm not sure because it's a close-up.
Is it this?
No.
No. Okay. This is a 2005
It might not be
one.
till later.
I'm gonna put the 2005 one just up slightly.
Are we even gonna watch clips or just
no?
quickly
They're all
dismiss them?
But I will say this though, 2005 one's up slightly just because at one point Stephen Harper brings up like, marriage should be between a man and a woman, and everyone kind of like dogpiles on him for that. So anyways, fuck him.
Most conservatives support the traditional definition of marriage. Our party position is to support the traditional definition while supporting similar rights and benefits for all other equivalent relationships.
And the problem, is that Mr. Harper's position simply is not sustainable. Mr. Harper wants to reopen the charter issue of same-sex marriage, and he would take away a charter right.
And we have to understand that the religion of some shouldn't constitute the law for everyone, for everybody.
The clip of that.
It also has the dumbest thing a conservative party has said, which is, so at one point, Stephen Harper says, they ask him, hey, Stephen Harper, what's your opinion on surpluses? Do you think it's an example of good government financial planning? And Stephen Harper, leader of the Conservative government of Canada, says, I think surpluses are bad, actually.
Does he say why?
So the reason is because currently the Liberals had a surplus. So he can't give them any credit. So he says, so he can't, so he has to say, let me see.
So it's like if the Conservatives now start saying that the carbon tax is good. Back.
This is Mr. Harper is a surplus, a big one, a sign of good fiscal planning, or is it a sign of not so good fiscal planning?
I think actually it's a sign of not good fiscal planning. I know that we should not run deficits and we don't want to run deficits, but when surpluses appear out of thin air, I think that's a sign of bad fiscal management, or even worse, of dishonest fiscal management.
So basically he's just saying, like, trying to cast doubt on the current surpluses and before, like, it's done by...
He's such a creep.
Anyways, fuck him.
And he won. He won that year.
Yeah, he won. And, here's the thing. I don't disagree with the idea that surpluses are bad, because it just means that, like, there's tax money that isn't being used, So I can sort of see the argument for why a surplus isn't necessarily always a good thing, but that wasn't what...
It's so disingenuous, for him of all people to make that claim.
Anyway, so he won. So this was 2005, right before the New Year's. The next one in 2006, also super boring, so I'm not even going to watch it. 2008 comes in. So Stephen Harper wins, and then 2008, and we are...
Good evening, everybody.
Steve Paikin. I love Steve Paikin. I love his face.
He's an interesting looking guy.
He's
good at this. He just hosted moderated the last one.
The 5 major party leaders and Dion, Jack, questions you to send us.
So the Liberal Party was now run by Stéphane Dion.
Oh yeah, I forgot about him.
Stéphane Dion. We brought up how Stephen Harper looks like the T-1000.
Yeah.
Stéphane Dion, he's from Quebec. He has a fucking Arnold accent for some reason.
I cannot remember what he looks or sounds like.
He says government. Oh, and Elizabeth May from the Green Party.
She's still around.
I love Elizabeth May.
There he is.
And our much Canadians care and are concerned about their savings, their mortgages. And
there is something a bit more French about it, but I see what you mean.
Right now, we have an action plan that I released yesterday.
Okay, Stéphane Dion, very entertaining to listen to because he sounds like, to me, he sounds a lot like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
How would you feel if I put in the corner a little green screen image of me playing the Terminator theme on Ocarina?
Yes, do that.
I have that on hand.
Do that. Anything noticeable here? Oh, Elizabeth May wins this one. I think she's great. I love Elizabeth May. I don't agree with her.
To be clear, she does not win the election.
Yeah, no. I don't agree with Elizabeth May on everything, but I think she's a really great on screen.
Is she the only person in this debate who still has a seat?
Oh, that's a good question. Yes.
She's still kicking. She holds the Green Party's only seat as it currently stands. The Green Parties can command one parliamentary seat, and it's hers.
Yeah. And it will be forever, because she's going to live forever. And Stéphane Dion, I just want to point out, Stéphane Dion was the first Liberal leader to not be prime minister at some point.
Yes.
Since Edward Blake in 1887.
Yes.
Because the Liberal Party...
He was a monumental flop.
Yeah. The Liberal Party of Canada, extremely successful. Like... massively successful throughout its history. Like, and a lot of it is just for multiple reasons, is that it's just a centrist party, so it can sort of like shift it can change easily to like adapt to whatever people are currently feeling.
And whenever people are afraid of one thing, the Liberals can always present themselves as, well, we're the sane choice.
They're not ideologically tied down to anything politically.
That's why they think of themselves as the natural ruling party of Canada. Yeah. They kind of are. I get it.
I'm going to put this in B.
Now, speaking of Liberal leaders who didn't get to be prime minister, we're coming up on poor old Ignatia.
And before we move on, Stéphane Dion says something really interesting, which he did lose a lot. But at one point, an audience question is like, what can you say to make us know that voting is important and stuff? And Stéphane Dion is like, I know sometimes it feels like you're not like in love with any particular candidate or you feel like they're all crooks. But remember, if Stephen Harper, who was in official opposition at a time of when Bush was going to Iraq, had been prime minister instead of Jean Chrétien, we would be in Iraq with America. So no matter how you feel about the candidates, everything you do has everything who you vote for has massive implications for millions of lives.
But the premise I don't think is right. The premise is all the parties are the same. You have an example today. If we would have followed the view of Mr. Harper instead of Mr. Chrétien, Canada would be in the war in Iraq today with all the damage you may imagine and the tragedies and the cost and so on. We made the good decision. The same about the healthcare system. If the Alliance and the Reform Party would have been there, Medicare would not exist in Canada anymore. We made differences and choices.
2011.
It's easier now that the candidates are fewer,
Yeah, it's no longer 5 people up there.
Okay, 2011. Stephen Harper's still prime minister. Jack Layton's the NDP leader.
Layton's
still.
last and best.
Yes. This Green Party's not here. You might notice because they lost their seat. Michael Ignatieff is now the leader of the Liberal Party, and
big eyebrows.
Fucking Gilles Duceppe. Michael Ignatieff's voice is like the Anglophone Gilles Duceppe. It's very annoying.
I didn't find him annoying so much as put me right to sleep voice.
Yeah.
He did not light up a room. Then again, Stephen Harper is not... I don't know what his people saw in him, but they must have seen something.
Yeah. I think...
He was successful. I hate to say it.
He was very successful.
If he wasn't successful, I think this would be a better world.
And I think he also... So this was the first time the election that Stephen Harper got a majority. And I think a lot of it had to do with I think a lot of it was vote splitting. And because I don't think he himself changed a lot, right? And also a very unpopular Liberal leader, Michael Ignatieff, who came in, who was basically an American for a lot of time, and then came back wanting to be prime minister. And also, he just had no charisma.
But let me just say one key thing here. This comes down to a moment of choice. You can either spend it on corporate tax breaks, multi-million-dollar expenditure on prisons, billions on jets, big gifts to upper middle class Canadians to reduce their taxes, or you can support healthcare.
Yeah. This is definitely Jack Layton's personal best. He definitely wins this debate. Anything I have here to note. Oh yeah, Stephen, fucking Gilles Duceppe.
I watched this debate. I remember.
Yeah,
might be the first one I remember. This is the first one I remember watching. I might have watched previous ones.
I did. I was not politically sentient when this came up.
I'm older than you.
And one reason why I hate Gilles Duceppe is he makes me agree with Stephen Harper on an issue.
Is a nation.
We were staring Peter Lorre eyes.
America, that people coming to Quebec has to integrate themselves with in French, which is the public common language. So I just don't understand why you oppose, Mr. Harper and Mr. Ignatieff, that Bill 101, the is relying on the federal code, labor code. Which are the banks.
The banks. I think that was the first election. I watched election night coverage for the first time.
That makes sense. Party. And you watched Stephen
Harper. I was very upset.
Yeah. But basically, Gilles Duceppe, I'll find the exact. Is
everyone else at the party was super happy that the NDP did so well and the Greens kept their seat. And I was like, but the fucking conservative majority. This is so much worse.
So basically, Gilles Duceppe is multiculturalism isn't compatible with Quebec, and Stephen Harper's multiculturalism is an important part of Canadian and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just why did you make me agree with Stephen Harper?
Yeah.
The Bouchard-Taylor Commission was very clear. Multiculturalism doesn't fit with Quebec's interest and Quebec's future.
We favor multiculturalism. And what Canadians need to understand, what we understand about multiculturalism, is that people who make the hard decision to leave countries where they've been established for centuries or millennia and come here, they first and foremost want to belong to this country. That's why they come. That's why they're here. they also at the same time will change our country. And we show through multiculturalism our willingness to accommodate their differences, but so they're more comfortable. That's why we're so successful integrating people as a country. I think we're probably the most successful country in the world in that regard. Now,
fuck you.
All right, you know what, Gilles? If multiculturalism isn't compatible with Quebec, then learn English.
Yeah.
I mean, he knows English, but like, then switch to English. If you think multiculturalism is so bad, then you assimilate.
I'm going to put this one above 2008.
I do not think Quebec should assimilate, to be clear. I think that multiculturalism is great, and Quebec is a good example of that.
I'm going to put this in 2000 in high B because, so this is the one where Jack Layton calls out Michael Ignatieff for not showing up to work as an MP, and he says, most people, when they don't show up for work, they don't get a promotion.
If you want to be Prime Minister, you better learn how to be a member of Parliament first. You know, most Canadians, if they don't show up for work, they don't get a promotion.
And also Jack Layton mentions Olivia Chow, who's our current mayor. So, yay.
Yeah.
Anyways, so yeah, I'm putting this in B just for that, famous line, Jack Layton did the best, and then he died.
Yep.
So
he fucking died of
cancer. Fuck
just
cancer.
At the moment when the NDP... The Liberals had a terrible year. The NDP became the official opposition, which I don't think had ever happened before.
No, this was the only time.
It was
last time, apparently.
They never had any more power, and then they did then, and then he died.
Yes.
Awful timing.
Okay, so that goes in B. 2015. 2015 had 2 debates.
Here we can see our guys.
Yeah, these are our guys. Tom Mulcair replaced Jack Layton as the NDP leader. Stephen Harper's incumbent prime minister. Elizabeth May comes back as the Green.
Honestly, how
Justin
nice that she was
Trudeau.
even invited to the debates, because the Greens often do not show up to the debates.
Well,
they're mad about it. They want to be at the debates, but they don't always get invited.
Yeah, they don't always meet the criteria. Paul Wells sucks as mod. This fucking guy, he's not a good moderator.
No, I don't like his face.
He has like no charisma. It's like all awkward.
Much like Mulcair.
Yeah. Mulcair has this weird, creepy face where like he smiles as if he knows a secret. That, like, yeah, like perfect.
Still image.
He smiles as if he knows a secret you don't. But
I voted NDP that year. I wanted Mulcair to win, but I will freely admit he did not have it.
Yeah, and I think that's about all the notes I have for this particular debate, other than Elizabeth May brings up Mark Carney at certain points, so that was interesting.
And right now there's no investment going on. There hasn't been investment for the last 2 or 3 years, not from the private sector that's sitting on $630 billion of what Mark Carney called the dead money.
Yeah, this one, D probably.
D for dull?
Yeah, D for dull. And then the next one, Globe and Mail debate.
So each debate is hosted by a different major newspaper or magazine? And this is the year that Trudeau finally becomes the Liberal leader.
Yeah, so this is the same year as this one, but that's why it's one's A, one's B. This is the one where Stephen Trudeau, where Justin Trudeau wins a majority. Another super boring debate. Other than the fact that for some reason the moderator is like next to them.
And they're reading tweets to respond to.
Anyways.
That wouldn't happen today.
Do I have any notes on this? Trudeau does the whole like, are you better off than you were when before Stephen Harper being a prime minister thing, which is always very effective. And nothing interesting happens here. Another super boring one. You know what? I'm actually going to put them below, both of these below 2005. So that's for those ones.
Now 2019 we're coming up on. That is when...
Well, we'll get to...
Is that when Bernier shows up?
Yeah, so there are 2 2019 ones. So the first one is actually kind of funny because Trudeau didn't show up. So they just have like an empty... I
don't remember that.
Yeah, because no one watched it because Trudeau didn't come. Because, it was just like, what's the point of watching this when the sitting prime minister isn't there? You can see it says they just had an empty podium to represent Justin Trudeau.
Yeah, they got Elizabeth May for the Greens again. They got Andrew Scheer for the Conservatives and Jagmeet Singh, NDP.
Yeah. This one's, I kind of like this one without Trudeau because it's these two like farther left parties just dogpiling on Andrew Scheer.
Yeah.
Because listen, Andrew Scheer, I hate him. I think he's the worst.
I don't like him.
Like, I think if I were to rank all the leaders of the Conservative Party of Canada since they became a party in 2004 or whatever, it'd go Scheer at the bottom, then Poilievre,
You think Scheer's worse than Poilievre?
I can't explain why. I think it's just a lot of it's the fact that he looks like a fucking Five Nights at Freddy's animatronic.
He does have like this weird rodent-like quality to him, those uncomfortably shiny eyes.
Yeah.
Now, luckily, he also has as much charisma as a lump of sour cream.
That's true.
I actually participated in the Conservative primary that year to pick a candidate. Yeah, specifically because I was trying to stop a guy like Andrew Scheer from becoming the candidate.
So you paid the fee. You joined the Conservative Party.
A bunch of people I knew did that, and we were all voting for like center-right candidates like Chong, Michael Chong, who not so bad.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I would end up voting for him federally if it came down to that, but I at least hear him out.
Oh, that's funny. But you like, are you still a part of the Conservative? Do you still get
but
their
I
emails?
did get calls from them for a while. I told them to take me off the list.
Oh, that's
I
really
remember
funny.
they were getting called. They were calling me saying like, "Do we have your support?" And I'd be like, "No, I'm going to vote NDP this year." But isn't this how you want to stop Trudeau's free spending liberal policies? And they were talking in like such like soundbite scripted questions. They kept using the term free spending, and I was like, I'd take that over Andrew Scheer.
Yeah. I'm gonna put this in high B. I think a lot of what I like about it is that Elizabeth May, because it's only 3 of them, Elizabeth May gets to talk a lot, and because she knows she's not going to be prime minister.
Yeah,
she can say whatever she wants. So she says wild things.
I always like having the Greens at the debates.
Because when you can't win, you can say whatever you want.
Yeah.
Same thing with the NDP and the
Bloc
Québécois.
Yeah. They're not always being raging jackasses. Sometimes they're being interesting and entertaining jackasses.
Yeah. And Andrew Scheer is just the only one who's trying to be like, oh, I'm the calm, I'm the calm authoritative one who can
go ahead, say authoritarian. He would have been.
And who's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna override indigenous groups to like build pipelines, and the other 2 are like, oh, you're fucking.
That's
you
bad,
suck.
actually.
Like, I'll put in the clip because
in that bill there is a provision that would force governments to recognize that in order for big projects to go ahead, the types of job creating projects that give people
you
opportunity.
actually would have to give prior and informed consent.
Free, prior, and informed consent. And that means that we would have tremendous uncertainty. It means that if there were some... let me finish. This is very important.
If you can't actually
if
get
there
communities
are indigenous
outside,
communities who want a project to proceed, they would be vetoed if there were some that were opposed. And part about respecting indigenous rights means respecting the right to say yes.
We will have to control Gorman with a hand firm enough to silence any resistance.
And we do not live in a country where any one group of people have a veto.
Free, prior, and informed consent is the reason the Conservatives stopped the bill.
Does that mean...
Elizabeth May gives a shout out to her Rotary Club friends.
Yeah, hey, Paul, let me just do a shout out to my fellow Rotarians who are watching, and I pledge to abide by the 4-way test at all times, should I become Prime Minister or in the rest of my political life.
That's really funny.
Did you see her interview on Nardwar?
No.
It's funny.
I should.
They talk about like music she grew up listening to.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I have a gift for you. A Rita record from 1983.
Yeah.
And check out the back. Where is this from? What record label is it on?
It's on the record label of the CBC and the University College of Cape Breton Press. Fantastic.
And I think at some point, we can cut this out if I'm wrong, but I think at some point there's sirens in the background.
Is Justin Trudeau's corruption scandal as it relates to SNC-Lavalin and the fact that he broke the law. He is the only prime minister that has ever been convicted of breaking the law, and he lied about it. And now we find out that the RCMP is looking into this case with the view to possible obstruction of justice charges, and he is obstructing their attempts to get the truth. So I want to use this opportunity to again call on Justin Trudeau to do the right thing and waive full cabinet privilege and cabinet confidence to allow people to testify to the RCMP so we can get to the bottom of this issue.
Don't you agree with me that we need a full inquiry?
Nardwar host
the
should. Debates.
Anyways, 2019A goes in here where it's just the 3 of them and an empty podium representing Justin Trudeau.
That is funny. To our international viewers, if you don't know who Nardwar is, look him up. I'll put a link.
Great. Yeah.
I can't explain him. He is inexplicable.
And now the federal leaders debate.
Put the sound back
CBC one.
Peace Tower bells are back! Woo! This is already my favorite.
We'll decide who to invite or invite back to this place, Parliament Hill, the House of Commons.
2019. This is the second 2019 one. This
Look
is
at all
all
the
leaders.
podiums.
So it's not just 3 parties, not including Justin Trudeau.
All right.
Okay, so I just want to remember 1988 when you had 3 hours for 3 candidates.
Yes.
2 hours for 6 candidates.
So everyone's just
everyone's scrambling for time.
Yeah.
And you know what? Do you remember that all that you say you did for Quebecers was done when Harper was in a minority government?
His
all
oil and
those
gas
changes were
from the United
forced by
States.
Bloc
You
Québécois.
prefer sending consumers' dollars to the United States to support that economy.
You have a
prefer
strange
Canadian energy.
picture of reality.
You've talked over each other and you're both out of time.
And remember, we're ranking this by entertainment value.
And Bernier's here,
and
right?
Bernier's
who has
here.
no respect for the concept of time because he exists in an alternative dimension where everything is stupid.
Because he's just fighting so desperately to get people to take him seriously. Didn't work. He didn't win a single seat, not even his own.
He still hasn't got a seat.
Yeah, so
eat shit, Bernier, you fascist.
Elizabeth May, Green Party again. Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister, leader of Liberal Party. Andrew Scheer, Conservative Party. Maxime Bernier.
Maxime Bernier is the head of the People's Party of Canada. This was their very first election.
Yes.
They still don't matter.
They still don't matter.
They are further right than the Conservative Party.
Yes. Yves Francois.
They thought COVID
Blanchet.
was a scam. Here's Blanchette's first time.
Debate. And Jagmeet Singh again as NDP leader.
Let's briefly talk about Yves Blanchet.
So he's kind of like Gilles Duceppe, except his voice is lower and therefore I hate him less.
It's not just the voice. I just genuinely like him better.
Yeah.
I disagree with him on many things, but while Duceppe is just a horrible lizard and you want him to shut up, Blanchet comes in there and he's weird and he's quirky and he has an entertaining presence.
That's true. And and he's still talking about how Canada sucks and is artificial to this day. So
he's also witty.
Yeah.
He makes like legitimately kind of clever jokes and observations.
So and I just want to say, if you know nothing about Canadian politics, watch this debate on YouTube. This is the most Canadian debate ever, on top of its entertainment value of watching 6 people like struggle desperately for airtime. Literally the first audience question, we get a sorry. Someone apologizes.
Sorry.
Okay, extremely Canadian. And then fucking Elizabeth May. Okay, so let's just go through their opening statements. Justin Trudeau says generic, Liberal Party stuff, and we're gonna handle these issues.
Look at my hair, I'm so handsome.
Yeah. And then what was his question again?
As Prime Minister, how would you effectively defend both the interests and values of Canadians on the world stage?
That's a very generic question.
About the future of our country and compare and contrast the various plans that
Maxime Bernier comes in.
Canada first. The other leaders on this stage are globalists.
Yeah, fuck climate change, blah blah blah. Just like,
not our problem.
Not our problem.
The thing,
it's not like we are at risk of being invaded for our water or anything.
His
not
voice is less annoying than Duceppe's, but he makes up for it by just being incredibly rude to everyone else and just constantly interrupting them. He's just a douchebag. And his politics are also bad.
Yes.
49% of our population believe that we must have fewer immigrants. They're not racist, they're not radical. So what you are saying, because I'm in line with the majority of our population, 49% of majority of...
But I do appreciate you for splitting the right vote. So the right wing vote. Thank you, Maxime Bernier. And then Jagmeet Singh says Jagmeet Singh's trying to be super friendly. He's like,
I like him. I'm sorry he lost his seat.
And he says,
thank you very much, Regan, for your question. I know it's tough to ask questions in front of a big crowd, so thanks for doing that.
Yeah, he's just trying to be really nice.
Yeah, because that guy clearly had stage fright.
And then he just goes on, generic, blah, 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 NDP, blah, 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 here are our policies. And then Andrew Scheer comes in and he's like...
About free trade and defend our interests all around the world. But Justin Trudeau only pretends to stand up for Canada. He's very good at pretending things. He can't even remember how many times he put blackface on.
So he just goes off on Trudeau with completely irrelevant to the question. Just brings, and then Elizabeth May has this great...
He had something prepared and he knew this is as good time as any.
And then Elizabeth May has this great...
I would actually like to answer Reagan's question in contrast to what we just heard.
So just like...
Oh, shit!
Just kind of like, I don't know what the fuck that was. And then she does a land acknowledgement, which is super Canadian. So this debate is just absolutely fucking chaotic. They're great. I'm not gonna play any more clips because they're all like fucking. It's all great. Just watch it. Yeah, there's a certain point where they break off into two halves and they start debating with each other within their halves.
No, nobody can hear what you're saying anymore.
You will be signing the nomination papers for people who have pledged to take away rights from women.
I know. You're having a mini debate over here. Can we?
And I think what happened was, if I know the history, was that they were all expecting 5 people, and Maxime Bernier somehow like strong-armed himself into the debate.
Yeah, because like clearly his party does not have the like if in past years the Greens have not met the requirements to get invited, surely neither did these pieces of shit.
Yeah. So, but as a result, it is very entertaining. It's very chaotic. There's like Benny Hill music the whole time.
Yeah.
And but as a tool for figuring out who to vote for, it's useless because you can't understand a single thing that's been communicated.
But anyways, as a piece of entertainment.
As a piece of entertainment and as like a time capsule that shows like the literal rainbow of like political opinions in Canada. Pretty good.
This is just pre-COVID too.
Yeah, just pre-COVID.
So now let's get into the post-COVID.
I actually love 2019, the election, because it's the one where I worked the election. And so I felt like a lot of connection to the results. And it's the one where I'm not going to say which riding or which province I was living at the time because I don't want to give out personal information. But my riding, it went like the Conservatives lost by like a super narrow margin. So like, oh, wow, I mattered so much. And what's funny was when I went home after working the election, I got a call and like, hey, legally, you actually need to open this bag. Otherwise, we can't count the votes. I had to like drive to the center in the middle of the night to open it. So yeah, so that election, the Conservatives lost because of me, so I just want to say that.
Good job.
2021.
So this is the socially distanced debate, also at the museum, but with a the Museum of History, but with a much more minimal set from what I remember.
So People's Party is gone.
You can see
Is this the same one?
I thought the People's Party were here at this one.
No, they were only in the 2019 one.
Really? Okay.
Because they didn't win a single seat, so they didn't qualify.
I'm misremembering that. Okay.
It's the same.
There's Annemie Paul.
There's Annemie Paul who replaced
I liked
Elizabeth May at this point.
So she was not an effective leader.
No.
At all. But I thought she presented herself quite well at the debate. She came across well, I thought.
Yeah, I think she was definitely awkward, and we'll get to that.
Yeah.
And Aaron O'Toole.
Oh, him. I forgot him.
I think he was okay, because remember, people like harp on like, oh, Trudeau did the carbon tax and he let in immigration. Aaron O'Toole was also both pro-carbon tax and pro-rising immigration.
Yeah, okay.
Because, we have a labor shortage, we need to let him, or we need to increase immigration.
Well,
so people,
of course we do.
So everyone was like harping on Trudeau for that. If Aaron O'Toole won, if the Conservative Party won in 2021, the same things would happen. So just remember that, people. This one was pretty boring, honestly.
I just like seeing the museum in the background.
Yeah.
They got that big Bill Reid statue that's on the 20.
I'm going to put this in...
The guys in the canoe.
I'm going to put this in D, honestly.
Can we bump it up to C?
Okay, sure.
Just because I like the museum.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'll do it for Danny.
And throughout, there are some establishing shots of the Great Hall, the History Museum, which is one of my favorite places.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. Do I have any notes from this? Jagmeet Singh says he's going to be a dad soon. I guess that's cute.
Oh yeah, and it was him being a dad during COVID that led to him calling up Trudeau and saying, no, Trudeau called him to congratulate him.
Oh yeah.
And then they got to talking and they said, hey, let's figure out dental care.
Oh yeah, that's cute.
Lisa needs braces.
Also, I'll send you a clip later, but someone asked Jagmeet Singh a really good question, which is, how can you fix housing prices? Because housing prices, if they go down, that's good for young people who don't have houses, but it's bad for like old people who have houses because their investment goes down. Because a lot of their retirements and stuff are in housing.
Yeah.
Right. So then, which is that is literally insolvable. Like there is no way to benefit.
Yeah, it's a bit of a zero-sum
game. Yeah. So Jagmeet Singh's just like, well, young people, old people want their like nieces and nephews and daughters and sons to be well too. So I would prioritize young people, which I guess it's as good an answer as possible.
As a youngish person, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I go door to door in my riding at Burnaby, people have got beautiful homes. I ask them, what's the number one concern? They say housing. And I kind of look around at their house and say, well, you've got a home. They say, well, I'm not worried for myself. I've got a place, but I'm worried about my kids. And they're more concerned that their kids will never be able to find a home than their own circumstances because they're okay. They are worried about their kids. And the reality is, it is impossible for young people to even imagine buying a home.
So yeah, I just think that's interesting that they just asked someone directly.
And he just like answered it instead of said, "Well, we have to consider a lot of factors and blah blah."
Yeah.
He just said this one.
I mean, it was still pretty politician.
Yeah,
but
like
still.
if he still like actually tells you where he stands on it instead of just.
And as for and I just want to point out, this is I think the not dumbest, I guess. It's not. I don't think that's fair, but it's the weakest part that a Green Party leader has said, which is Annamie Paul's opening statement, and I think it's just speaks to her inexperience because she comes off as like much less confident than May ever was. And so let me.
Being who I am and in this position has been incredibly hard. Being here tonight was not an obvious thing. I've had to crawl over a lot of broken glass.
Anyways, I don't think that's the tone you want to make your opening statement. That seems like it seems like, oh, I want people to feel bad for me. Like, no, that's not. Anyways, Elizabeth May would never.
It works when Trump does it, though. He talks about how everyone's been very mean to him.
Yeah, I guess.
And it keeps. Sometimes he wins elections.
Yeah, I guess.
But, that whole, like, woe is me grievance act works better when you're a white man.
Yeah, that's
never
true.
Actually suffered.
That's true. And finally, 2025. And Steve Paikin's back.
Yeah.
Yves-François Blanchet and Jagmeet Singh.
I love how he's naming them as he's walking by the mural.
Yeah, it's
showing
just as they come into the shot. It's
so
nicely choreographed.
Mark Carney's the prime minister at this point. Pierre Poilievre's
I want to say something about Poilievre. So the thing that boosted Carney, the thing that really got him over the top, was not just that he was a new face, I guess, but that he was, but the fact that people were scared of Trump, the fact that for the first time, Canada and America are not friends.
Yes.
And this just like completely unprovoked middle finger that America has given us all of a sudden for no reason.
Yeah.
And every time they brought that up in a question to Poilievre, he would dismiss it as not mattering.
Yeah.
And like, I don't think Canadians are really worried about that. I think Canadians are really more worried about violent immigrants coming in to shoot out jobs.
Yeah, we'll put in clips of it.
Fuck you, you piece of shit. That's not at all what we're worried about. We don't want our own Trump. We want someone who will stand up to Trump.
Yeah. So, and that's sort of why he lost. He was trying really hard to come off as nice in this one.
Sometimes, but he was also making a lot of very Trumpy arguments. He was saying, like, it should be okay to skip somebody's charter rights if they did something really bad.
Overall, I feel like this was still pretty boring, though. I think the problem was Mark Carney was trying to be boring. Trying to be like, oh, I'm like a sane, boring, safe person.
Yes.
And Poilievre, normally he's very like fiery and competitive and like blah, 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 blah. But here he was also trying to be like super nice.
He knew it was smart to tone that down.
So as a result, no one was particularly entertained.
Jagmeet Singh kept interrupting people.
Well, he was interrupting because like he was trying to stop Pierre Poilievre from like, it was a murder-suicide because he knew he wasn't going to win. So he was trying to like stop Pierre Poilievre from like getting like a soundbite in, and I thought that was like really.
Oh, you think
strategic.
so?
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Blanchet got a few good quips in.
Yeah,
and one thing I always like to do on election night is just look at the faces of candidates in different ridings, and judge them in a cruel and superficial way. And I can make the following generalizations. NDP and Green candidates either look like a kindly old grandparent, or they're just like this incredibly hot young person.
Oh, yeah.
Conservative candidates, the older ones look like a stock photo of a politician, and the younger ones look like the bully from an 80s teen comedy.
Yeah.
And People's Party candidates look like they sniffed glue and dropped out of high school, and that like their girlfriends have just started high school.
Yeah. Because that's probably what it was.
And Liberal candidates, I can't really make a generalization. They look like whatever.
Are the most generic ones.
Yeah.
There was this one part where I think I remember very vividly. Pierre was like trying to force Carney to like pick a side on like pipelines, and Carney. That's something you don't want to do as Carney because like then you're going to isolate like a lot of people as.
Yeah. And he was right to go after Carney on that.
And then Jagmeet Singh comes in. Or Jagmeet, I forgot. Jagmeet comes in. He's like.
What you're saying, Mr. Carney, with respect, is a total contradiction. The No New Development Law, C-69, guarantees there will not be a one-stop shop because it requires the Government of Canada to actually duplicate the same project.
Have no regulation.
Have one-stop shop.
Mr. Singh, over any energy
Mr. Singh, we just got to let him finish his sentence.
Pollute.
Let's just let him finish his sentence.
That is not true. In fact,
he just like interrupts Pierre and it's like, oh, the Liberals did build a pipeline. What are you talking about? And I was like, oh wow, you
saved him.
You fully came in and saved Carney from having to force
by attacking. You saved him.
No, like because I was just like, oh yes, you fully come in and saved Carney from having to pick a side on pipelines.
I like the moment when I can't remember exactly what it was, but Polyev is acting for a second like he cares about the environment. And Singh says, "Since when do you care about the environment?" And Carney looks at him and just like kind of chuckles, like, "Right, good one there."
Oh, speaking of I think Carney won this one. Obviously, not just the election, but the debate, because he had the funniest facial reactions to everything. Like when you know the famous one.
Let's find it. Let's find the.
Since you've had the opportunity to get your top secret security clearance and you've refused, why?
Well, first of all, I have got my security clearance when I was a minister. I got top secret clearance at the time, so there's no problem getting that. But when the government made this recent offer, they said that if I got the secret security clearance briefings, that I would be gagged under the security law.
Absolutely amazing.
This is obviously the best moment of the debate.
Yeah, this is really funny. But overall, it was still pretty boring. And I'm going to put this above 2021.
I didn't finish watching it. That moment was golden, but the rest of it was...
The rest of it, because they're just trying to be boring. That's the problem, other than... Yeah. But overall, I think I like this one because I feel like...
The issues came out more than the sound bites?
Definitely more useful than... Nothing was less useful than the 2019, where they're just like scrambling for the precious resource of airtime. But and I like that there are fewer people. I felt like they tightened up their... criteria for who gets invited to these things a lot after 2019, like they learned their lesson, and as a result they were more focused and more coherent, but also more boring.
The downside is it means the Greens didn't get invited, which I know that they were not pleased about, but I'm sorry, you don't have the seats.
I would rather the Greens get in than the Bloc, because maybe the Bloc could be in the French language debate.
The Bloc wins seats though. The Bloc how many seats do they have right now, like 20 or something?
Yeah, 20 something, but it's like
the Greens have one.
But why?
But the Greens are running in more seats.
Yeah, but
I agree with you that it would be smart to add not just a requirement of how many seats you have, but how many you're running in,
because
to get in.
They have the criteria, but they have 3 criteria, and you need to complete 2 out of the 3. So you need to, I forget what they are, but the Bloc Québécois, they complete 2 of them, but they don't have the one where you run in like 90% of ridings in Canada, obviously. No. But I think like that should be a mandatory criteria to get into the English language debate, because why should 30 minutes of a 2-hour-long debate be dedicated to like someone that I can't vote for?
In theory, I agree with you, but I find Blanchet entertaining.
Yeah.
So I will not... Oh, I never said my generalization about how Bloc candidates look. I don't really have one, except that I think Blanchet has a funny-looking face.
Yeah.
I finally understand why they call us Anglo-Canadians tête carrée, because his head is a perfect rectangle.
Yes. Okay, so that's our video. It's not going to be nearly as long as it was recording it, especially at the 2000, like these ones where we had like a lot of candidates.
Yeah. This is definitely going to be our best performing video on the algorithm. Jimmy is Nostra fucking Damus.
Yes, I'm Nostradamus. I said so, and
this was his idea, as you can tell.
I bet my firstborn child, that this is going to be our best one yet, better than the Batman ones.
Better than the Batman villain's transphobia one.
Yes. Okay, well, thank you. Oh, Canada.
Then I noticed she was sitting on her sweet can. I grabbed her sweet can. Oh,